Hello and welcome to another quick play and review of Castlevania ROM hacks. This is Castlevania Reborn by XX Belmont XX, based on the original hack of Ludo Aquino's Castlevania Overflow of Darkness. Let's get started. Now we will be doing a full review and playthrough of Castlevania Overflow of Darkness on this channel at some point, but all you need to know for this one is that we have the intro credits, a couple of the enemy types, as well as this lovely sprite of Simon that looks like they're from Castlevania Chronicles, are all parts of the Overflow of Darkness ROM hack and are reused for this one with permission from Aquino. And really, Overflow of Darkness was the main reason that XX Belmont got into doing ROM hacking for Castlevania 1 in the first place. Now, if you take a look at XX Belmont's ROM hacking page, they especially state that this ROM hack is really for veterans of Castlevania 1, and the difficulty level has been increased. And it really certainly has. In a lot of cases, there's a lot more pits, a lot more enemies, some more difficult places to be sure, but a lot of the difficulty actually comes from a lot of tricky parts, and we'll definitely point those out as we go along here. So there haven't been too many different things done to this hack, but one thing that I really like with it is that there's these differing paths, and these are in the first couple levels, where you could go down into the basement here and pick up the axe, but we are using the random item number 1, the stopwatch, from the random item table, and we'll be using that for the giant bat, as most of the bosses haven't really changed in this one either. It is called Castlevania Reborn, so I think that does make a lot of sense. So moving on here, we got to our giant bat. Alright, activate our stopwatch, hit a few times. And the spook went a little bit higher than I expected, so we just gotta wait for that one. Hit a few more times, head over, past these daring pits, and finish the bat off. So level 1 certainly was more difficult than Castlevania 1, but I liked it a lot. And I really liked the backgrounds as well. You can really see Chronicle Simon on this green and blue background. So moving on into level 2, we're going to see a lot of the same design as Castlevania. We're going to see that there are still themes as far as the enemy is concerned. And while I really like taking the holy water in speedruns of Castlevania 1, in this case we really need to grab the cross starting here, because we will not have access to it in level 3. And as far as the tricky parts of the ROM hack are concerned, the level 3 boss is quite tricky. We have a couple of nasty little bats to deal with, a little bit of a moving platform with some Medusa heads, classic Castlevania stuff. So we have a lot of bone pillars starting in this level, and it's kind of going to be a theme throughout the ROM hack. Bone pillars are just those things that ROM hackers love to pile on high. They have a ton of health, and when there's the holy water that we were talking about before, we don't want to pick that up. Just gonna be dealing with these great armors, which look great. One small thing as far as the core mechanics that did get changed is that the big hearts only give you 4 rather than the usual 5, which means that we have to be a little bit more careful with our heart count and our resources, which is perfectly fine. We have a couple of these kind of bone pillars just as you walk up the stairs, just to kind of slow us down. Otherwise, we could just take damage and keep on going through if we really wanted to. But here we're going into probably one of the most difficult rooms and one of the trickiest rooms in this ROM hack. So much so that I developed a method of getting through it easily and efficiently, just because these crushers one-hit kill you, and yeah, that third one, you can crouch, and at least during my first playthrough, I died a number of times there. Now, without the holy water, we can't really get through these bone pillars easily without taking a ton of damage. And starting in level 4 in this ROM hack, you start taking a quarter damage per hit. So I think throughout this whole playthrough, although it's kind of a speedy playthrough, we take a lot of things fast. Or take a lot of things slow, rather. Alright, so level 2 will be Medusa. Just throwing some warning shots with some of the crosses. We're going to have too many crosses at the end of the level, I think. But this, I recall, is a Yeah, it's going to be a damageless Medusa fight with a triple cross, and also a nice Triforce as well. The level 2 also looks quite good. I really like this blue ambience. And it also works really well with Simon's Sprite. So moving into level 3, this is where kind of some of the problems creep up and you start to see some of the repetition here. So here are our birds. And how many birds are we going to have? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 birds with just going over pits. And I've died there a couple of times in previous attempts of playthrough here, just because it's that repetitious movement of it. Now, if you didn't keep the cross in level 2, there is a chance to grab the axe in level 3 off of that lovely looking pillar. But we have the cross, and the cross is really going to be able to do work on the level 3 boss, which is a very neat form of the mummies. Alright, so moving into this next room. The rest of this level is pretty slow as far as completion goes, and it's once again a lot of repetition. We'll be dealing with a lot more Fleemen, a lot more birds, a lot more bone pillars, and yep, we're going to be dealing with a lot of skeletons that are currently out of reach, and perhaps bringing the axe along would be able to get rid of those a little bit easier, but the cross works just as well. So the one thing to say is that Belmont does provide the player with whatever sub-weapon is really needed for the situation, but, you know, we're trying to go a little bit quicker, so we've come prepared with this cross. So this screen, we had to go all the way to the left, and now all the way to the right. Makes this screen seem a little bit longer than it really needs to be. And we're just knocking this skeleton off from the stairs, just in case there's a chance of us getting knocked off ourselves. More bone pillars over pits. And we got through the first repetition of Pits and Enemies, Part 1. And now we're going to be doing Pits and Enemies, Part 2, with our friend, the lovely Medusa. But luckily, as long as you're moving forward with these Medusas, there's really no chance of getting hit yourself. And luckily, there aren't any bone pillars near pits to really mess with the rhythm of Simon here. Alright, one last bone pillar. And then we're going to be seeing the level 3 boss, which are the gargoyles, which are the mummies, but in the air. So if you didn't come prepared with the cross or the axe, you're going to be kind of in trouble. But luckily, we're doing a little bit of a glitch, where if you have overlapping enemies or items, you deal damage every other frame. And so the cross is just dealing a ton of damage, and we were able to get through that really quickly. Alright, moving on to level 4. This is probably where the most sprite work was put into use as far as the background is concerned. Oh dear, those bricks. So it kind of looks like the arena from Castlevania Aria of Sorrow or Rondo of Blood. You got some really nice eyes in the background, kind of give this an ominous feeling. But compared to the other levels, this brown on red, it doesn't quite look as good. It's not so easy to see Simon here. So we're already starting with more bone pillars and Medusas. And wait, that's a staircase? Oh, okay. Now, it might just be because I'm playing on a CRT, but starting in this level and going into level 5 and 6, it becomes a lot more difficult to actually see the floor versus the background. And I don't know if that's intended, just to make the player work a little bit harder to see things, but generally not a big fan of here. So this is Fleeman Alley. So instead of the flying birds dropping things on you, we have these bone pillars that are basically right in place over a cliff. So this is another area where it's really hard to see. Like, how would you know that the background is not the floor? And oh dear, it's a little bit problematic. Using this triple cross gets through pretty quickly. We grab our first potion of the run. And in fact, there's no other potions really to use besides the random one. In the random one that you can sometimes get off of enemies based on the random item table. So we got through, quote, Fleeman Alley, and we have a couple more places to go before the level 4 boss, which is not Frankenstein, which definitely did throw me off the first playthrough here, but it's going to rather be Death. Now, we have this holy water, and it does stun lock, but just taking some additional damage just to move farther away from the pits. Once again, this is another area where, you know, these bone pillars are really, like, nasty locations, and rather just be safe than sorry, just in case. Now, this is pretty reminiscent of Castlevania 3. We'll have Death appear in the middle of the stage, but some holy water takes him down real quick. So, with that being the level 4 boss, that really made me wonder what's next, and the level 5 boss really is something else. Okay, moving into level 5, this is probably my least favorite stage of the game. There's some tricky portions of it, there's some repetition, and yikes. It is very hard to see the differences between the background and the foreground. Now, this is definitely an issue of my CRT rather than necessarily what it looks like on emulator. But even so, when looking at the emulator, it's still very hard to distinguish. And I've fallen in way too many pits in this level. Because, I mean, the brick background and pillars make it very difficult to differentiate between the floor. You can't even really see the stairs in this speed of the game. So, yeah, there's some issues here. A lot of the level design, however, has remained the same. As this is the second screen, we have skeletons at the top, just throwing those bones away at Simon. So just get rid of them, lickety split, and we'll be moving on. Now, this is another nice place where we have some branching paths, where this door is actually not fake, and we can go right through it. And this actually provides us a very nice secret to grab some much needed meat at the end of this corridor. But we don't want that knife. I want to keep that holy water for a while. There's a lot of enemies in this area where the holy water really helps out, such as these bone pillars, and also there's one Fleeman, just gotta manipulate them to the left. I'll grab a couple of hearts and just move on into the next couple rooms. This one will be a little bit, which are both a little short, just like Castlevania 1. A couple more Fleemen, flames, and just gonna grab a couple more hearts to go. Of this almost seemingly invisible staircase. There's the axe, which we will be using later, but there's another axe drop just for us. A little bit of a Pac-Man scenario with that skeleton going down into Nowheresville. Alright, so here we're going to start seeing some more. Yep, you got it. More bone pillars. And I think we'll be seeing some more great armors here. So those have a lot of HP, but they do have a pretty big hitbox. And we're going to be able to utilize some quick strats for them soon. But yeah, this level is pretty much the same design as Castlevania 1 with a couple more enemies in a lot of the areas. So kind of just slows you down if you want to not take damage. Right there. I feel like, at least for level 5, it's almost the same exact design as Castlevania 1, with just a couple of enemy swaps. Like here, there's maybe like 2 things that have really changed. Here, instead of getting the cross, you're getting the axe, which we were able to use against that bone skeleton. And then we're just building up a multiplier here. But really, nothing too new. At least in this section. Having two knights at once is not actually much of a problem. As, because they overlap, you have to do that extra damage that happened with the mummies. So here is almost the same. This is actually a little bit different. We have a little bit more of a vertical screen here to get towards the level 5 boss, which happens to be some type of skeleton flame wizard, but it's actually just Frankenstein in disguise. And this boss is also one of those which has been changed with a very fun addition of being in the air as well. So just need to get through a couple more bone pillars. And this fight actually goes really quickly with the triple axe. But it can go really out of hand. If you don't have the right weapon here, this fight is almost impossible. So that's another tricky part with this hack. You gotta have the right sub-weapon for the right boss. And that's true in Castlevania 1 as well. But here it's you really, really need the right one. Okay, so moving on into level 6. This is a pretty fair level, and the difficulty certainly has decreased here. But in some ways, it's kind of refreshing after the last two stages. Here we just see a lot of great armors. It's a little bit easier to navigate through the background and foreground in this one. And I kind of like that there's no giant bats on the screen. Might just be just me. But it still is pretty treacherous. But it is, once again, very repetitive with these Fleeman and Great Art Axe Knight combo. So just trying to build a couple more hearts. We'll need those for later on. As we've seen throughout this hack, there's lots of enemies, and those enemies happen to have lots of HP. So just gonna go slowly down the stairs, not gonna take any risks in getting hit into a pit. Moving on into that third block, just to make sure that even if I did get hit, I wouldn't get pushed into that pit. A couple hard jumps in this level, but not too many, and you don't really get clobbered for it. Another one of these kind of like spiral staircases up through the room. We have a little bit of ivy on the background in this level, and I think that helps with differentiating the background and foreground as well, which we didn't get to see in the last stage. So here, we're actually able to find quite a few hidden meats that have been locked away, and hearts are pretty easy to come by too. More great armors. Nothing like too fancy here, not a lot of enemies like working together. So it's really just move a little bit forward, deal with the one enemy that's in front of you, and then keep rinse and repeat. Here I think we have a bone pillar that's going to actually cause us a little bit of trouble. Which is going to be working in combination. Nope, not this screen. The next screen. The screens are so easy to get confused sometimes. Another one of those spiral staircases. Something that you'd see from Stairs of Doom if you've seen that ROM hack. It's all about those spiral staircases. See, there's just another meat right here. And level 6 was pretty tame. And I think that's kind of alright because, I mean, we'll still be going up against Dracula. This kind of looks odd because the colors just get completely changed from level 6 into this area up to Dracula. But otherwise, this Dracula fight is completely standard. But there's no holy water in the leftmost candle, so you really are relying on the cross in order to go fast. By hitting Dracula in the head, you pretty much instantly spawn a triple shot, just because the number of hits kind of get multiplied by quite a few. Just trying to avoid the fireball, triple pattern, Same old, same old. I think this is going to be the same sprite as Overflow of Darkness. Not sure. I haven't gotten that far in the ROM hack just yet. But we have a neat little red cookie sprite. It looks pretty good, especially going like against this red-haired Simon. And that's it. Some crosses, some whips, easy peasy. Now, how do I feel about this ROM hack? I think it has some very good potential, and the first couple levels are pretty good. This is an awesome ending screen, or ending credits sequence, by the way, with you have your Belmont on the cliff looking out, just like Castlevania 3. But it certainly has some problems with it. I think a lot of the backgrounds in the later levels make it kind of hard to see, especially 4 and 5. And there's some repetitive nature with some of the bosses or some of the enemy patterns. The bosses are pretty good. I really like the changes that Belmont's done there. And I think this is a nice, like, if you wanted a little bit harder of a Castlevania 1 experience, this certainly does do it for you. But there's not so many things that have been altered so much that this is a need-to-play hack. But that's just my opinion on it. Definitely check it out for yourself if you like to play gameplay of this one. And as always, if you like this review, do give this a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Castlevania ROM hack reviews.